I'm going to talk to you today about getting value from your healthcare data. Now, all of us have worked very hard over the past decade and more digitizing healthcare, transforming the workflows of our organizations, and frankly, collecting a lot of data. But now's the time to really get more value from that data. Get more value, help drive us into that next era of data-driven healthcare and transform our whole communities. And I'd like to bookend this conversation with two different quotes. The quote on the left is from a customer when we just started working with them. It was from one of their physicians, and she said, "I'm looking for a needle in a haystack, and you IT people just keep adding more hay." Now that could be the result of our data and analytics efforts, that we bring more data to the table, but it doesn't help. It just confuses and doesn't help our clinicians, our users, our decision makers with any new important facts for them. The other quote on the right is a better quote, of course, from a different customer. "You can change the health of a population if you have a patient engagement rate of 85%. Otherwise, you will lose." In this case, the customer used their data and analytics platform to drive changes in the real-time engagement with their patients, and they ended up improving the health of their highest-risk patients. Now, that's the kind of outcome we want out of our data and analytics efforts. We want to change the health of our population, not just add more hay on the haystack. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is our view on the difference between these two quotes, in a sense, and what you can do to really get that value and get that impact out of your data and analytics efforts. So you've told us that analytics is one of your most important strategic priorities, either in the top 5 or fundamental to all your priorities. The vast majority of you have analytics on your mind. And this is from a survey that was just recently published with 100 different health systems. You've also said within those analytics priorities, what you want to do is create and share high-quality data across your whole organization. Now, the verb create is very important here. You acknowledge that high-quality data just doesn't come out of your source systems, that you have to take specific action, technology, know-how, skills to actually create that high-quality data. And share is also a very important verb here. You don't want just high-quality data on a display case somewhere. You want to make sure it's shared across your organization and having the impact to your users and your clinicians and your decision makers. But analytics is not easy. And the number one barrier that you've said you have toward analytics is really data integration and interoperability. So getting data out of your various systems and integrating it together in a sensible, valuable way that really makes sense of the various ways that the data comes to the table. And these barriers have an impact on you. It has an impact to your analytics team. There's long lag times between when your users want some data, want some information, and when your team can deliver it to them. Because of that, there's an inability to scale. You no doubt have a long backlog of requests from users for reports, for dashboards, for information that you just can't necessarily get around to. And so your vision of really democratizing data for your whole organization is proving elusive. And it also has an impact to your overall organization, an economic impact to clinical and operational and financial priorities. What you recognize is poor decisions. Your decision makers don't have the facts, don't have the data and information to make proper decisions. They have to use their gut instinct perhaps too much. And also slower decision making. As your leaders debate the data, sift through it, try and figure it out, maybe debate different definitions of the same metrics, and it kind of slows the whole process down. And ultimately, your users, your decision makers do not have trust in the data. And I think the survey does capture the current state of the market. Analytics are a huge priority for you. There are barriers to making analytics work, especially around interoperability and integration. And it has an impact on your organization, an impact on your own team, your data and analytics team, as well as your whole organization's financial and operational and clinical performance. But this is also motivation for us at InterSystems to see how we might be able to use our software, our assets, our unique skills and know-how to help you solve this problem or move your analytics strategy along. We do have a lot of different software assets that we can bring to the table. We have experience in end-user workflow like track care in our lab enterprise. We have a lot of experience in integration and interoperability with Health Connect and Iris for Health and HealthShare. We have a lot of experience in software around integrating data, unifying it, like our patient index, our provider directory, our unified care record. And also a lot of software and assets around analytics, like adaptive analytics and health insight, presenting that data, making it scale and perform for all your users. And so I'm happy to walk you through 3 different solutions that we're announcing this week based on these assets. The first is our healthcare analytics solution. This is a combination of our Iris for Health technologies, a lot of the content that Scott talked about earlier today, as well as our HealthShare assets around integration, interoperability, unifying data. The second solution I'll bring you through is a Track Care Innovation Toolkit. Combines Track Care along with Iris for Health and its FHIR capabilities to really unleash the data in Track Care for you to enable innovation. And the third solution is the InterSystems Client Connection. And this is a community platform to allow you to work together, share best practices with each other, with us, and allow us to post resources and documentation and other materials to allow the whole community to really work together and benefit. So I will first start with our analytics solution. So you've tried in analytics. We know that. And typically customers will start on the left. So you will try to maximize the analytics capability of your EMR or your operational systems. And that makes perfect sense to us, whether that be Epic or TrackCare or Cerner or Meditech or Athena Health. That's your main platform. You really want to maximize that for all that it can do. But we've heard from some of you that that really doesn't always go the distance on your analytics journey. So a number of you have moved to the right. Get some raw technology like from Amazon or Microsoft or Google or Snowflake and create data lakes, or sometimes called data swamps, with your data. But the reality is these raw technologies, one of the problems we hear from you is they come empty. You need to figure out how to get the data in them. You need to figure out how to normalize it and integrate it. You need to figure out how to store it and structure it. And so it's sort of like these types of solutions are an engine without the rest of the car. You really can't go anywhere with that, with just a raw engine. So what we've tried to do with our analytics solution is provide an end-to-end solution that really brings healthcare content plus kind of that raw engine technology to help you solve this particular problem. So here is a picture of our analytics solution, and this is a typical picture of analytics solutions. You have your data sources on the left, you have your happy users on the right, and you sort of have the magic in the middle. Now, the magic of our solution has 5 different components that I will take you through. 4 of the components, the pipeline, harmonization, data model, and user access, they're all about getting the data from the source systems and cleaning it, making it healthy, structuring it, and making it available to your users in their analytics environment. And then the last is about driving the results of your analytics work, your machine learning, your research back into the workflow of your users, your clinicians, your decision makers. So I'll take you through each of these 5 components now. The first component is our pipeline services. And this is really all about getting data out of your source systems and making it available for your analytics environment. Now, a lot of people struggle with getting data out of these different legacy and source systems, but we don't. We have a lot of technology. We have a huge connector library. Essentially, we've connected with nearly everybody within rounding across the world with a healthcare data system. We speak HL7, we speak fire, we speak X12, we speak CSV, we speak country-specific standards. We really can take data in whatever form these systems can output it and make it available to the rest of the pipeline. Next comes our harmonization services, and this is where a lot of the magic happens. This is where we aggregate, we normalize, we deduplicate the information, we match patients across the different systems, we apply terminology, so you have standard code sets, we apply natural language processing to get discrete data from the text, and we also have a rules engine that's part of the system, so you can define your own data, your own rules, your own enhanced metrics according to the rules of your organization. And then we make it available for our data model. So our data model has been in use for over a decade across the world with hundreds of millions of patient records. In fact, we have entire countries where all the citizens' health records are stored in this very data model. And this comes out of the box as part of our solution. It's comprehensive, it has a broad array of data already mapped out in it, and it's also extensible. So if you want to add your own data that you don't see in our data model, that's no problem at all. You can extend it. It'll be available via Fire, via analytics, in the ways that you need it. And lastly, we have our user access services. And this is basically projecting the data out to your users in the tool sets of your choice. It's controlled access, so you can apply the data governance rules that you want and make it available through our Tableau connector. This is a Tableau dashboard, for example, our Power BI connector available via Fire, via Apache Spark, via Python for your machine learning folks, I2B2 for your researchers. So basically, we make that data available in the platforms of your users' choosing. So at this point, a lot of analytics projects stop there. You've gotten the data out of your source system, you've cleaned it up, and you've made it available in some beautiful looking dashboard. But I would say your job is not yet done. And I will borrow a nice quote to illustrate this. We are trying to fight the notion that creating a report is the action plan. Now you've really just started. You need to make it usable and actionable in the workflow. So your challenge really is you've moved the data over here, you built machine learning models, you've built dashboards, you've built reports, you've generated insights, but your users and your decision makers are back there in their workflow, in their source systems. So you need tools to make that impact back in those source systems, and that's what we call our actionable insights. And we have three different technologies and approaches that we use for this. The first is bi-directional integration. So I mentioned that a lot of the marketplace seems to have trouble getting data out of source systems, and a lot of people think it's almost impossible to get it back into source systems, but we don't. We have experience going back and forth between all the various source systems that you might encounter. And sometimes getting data back into the source systems is an excellent solution for making an impact with your work. So for example, let's say you build a machine learning model that predicts the probability that a patient will be readmitted in the next 30 days. Sometimes the best solution is to take that probability and send that back into the source system. So it can be available in the patient banner, let's say, or it could be available for the discharge planning module of that source system. The second approach we have as part of our solution is real-time notifications. And for this, I'll take you back to that quote in the beginning about the patient engagement rate. So this customer had built some clinical programs around their highest risk patients. And they had developed some semi-sophisticated logic to automatically identify those patients and put them into cohorts. And they had various displays and reports and work lists and that sort of thing with these patient cohorts. They reached out to these patients with mailers, with flyers, with phone calls, with advertisements, the typical way to engage your patients. And they got an engagement rate of 15%. So what they did, and the 15% is not that high, of course, but it's not atypical for these kinds of approaches. But what they then implemented was our real-time notifications. And the way that worked is if any of these patients showed up at the ED or for a surgery or a physician office visit or some kind of encounter with their organization, the case manager for those clinical programs and the clinicians treating that patient were notified that this patient is a high-risk patient and there are clinical programs that they are eligible for. So then the clinicians interacted directly with the patient in real time, talked to them about the programs and how it might help them. And their patient engagement rate skyrocketed from 15% up to 85%. And they felt like at an 85% level, you could really change the health of a population. And they did change the health of that high-risk patient, basically through this real-time notifications approach. So this is an example of taking your analytics from the display case and putting them in the real-time interaction of your clinicians and your patients. And lastly, we can incorporate directly in the workflow of your source systems. So part of our analytics solution is a unified care record viewer solution. And this viewer can be plugged right into the frame of your workflow system. So we've integrated into Epic, into Cerner, into TrackCare, into Athena Health, you name it. We have integrated this viewer into the frame of these different systems. So this is an ability for you to generate data, to generate models, to generate insight, to generate displays, and plug them right into the workflow that your users are using all day long. So that's basically our analytics solution. So you have the data from your source systems. You use our pipeline services to get it out and make it available. Our harmonization services around making it clean and healthy and unified and standardized and enriched according to your rules. Our healthcare data model where it's stored and structured in a performant way. And then user access services to basically make it available for the tool sets that your analytics team, your users are most used to. And then various tools to make sure that the results of your analytics work can be driven back into the workflow directly of your users. So now I'm going to quickly tell you about two other solutions that we're happy to announce this week. Liberating your data for the purpose of innovation, we've also heard is one of your key strategies. So we're happy to announce the TrackCare Innovation Toolkit this week. What we want to do is enable you to take TrackCare from a system of record to a system of transformation. So it's a combination of TrackCare plus our Iris for Health and Fire capabilities integrated with TrackCare to enable you to build smart on fire applications, to build machine learning models, to build chatbots, to engage with startup companies in your community, and really to leverage that data for the types of innovation that really move your organization forward. So we hope this toolkit accelerates your innovation journey and makes it easier for you to see how to do that. And then the last solution we're announcing this week is around sharing best practices, basically. So allowing a community to work together to share best practices and resources and that sort of thing. So this is called our InterSystems Client Connection, and it's basically a community platform to allow our TrackCare customers initially to engage with each other, to share best practices, to have discussions, as well as an opportunity and a place for us to post resources and documentation and other materials that will be helpful to you and helpful to the community at large. You can learn more about all I've talked about in this presentation through the rest of our virtual summit. So I'll highlight in particular our customer sessions that follow mine, either Jim Hyman from Northwell Health or Bruce Windsor from Bendigo Health, depending on your region. We also have deep dives in analytics, in the TrackCare Innovation Toolkit, in the Client Connection, as well as an experience lab for our analytics solution. And I even have a link to the survey if you wanted to learn more about what other customers are talking about related to analytics. So I wanted to get back to the idea of really leveraging data and analytics to make an impact in healthcare. And I'm a musician, so I tend to think of everything in music terms. So let me show you an analogy. So now a drummer, a lot of people think of the drummers as just keeping time for the band. But drumming, because of its central position, can really be transformational to the band and to the audience. So now back on analytics, when you think of just moving your data from the source system over into a pretty dashboard. You have your pipeline, you have your Harmonization Services, you have your data model, you have your access services. You basically have just the ingredients for a drum solo. Now, a drum solo is fun. There's a lot of energy, there's fanfare, there's movement, but it's really just a solo act. It's just kind of for the drummer. So you have your new dashboard, you have your new reports, you have your machine learning models that you brag to your machine learning friends about, but that's really just kind of a solo act so far. And let's face it, a drum solo is really only good for the drummer. It doesn't power a band, the band's not even there. It doesn't engage and energize the audience, maybe for a minute, but it doesn't move the whole conversation forward the whole night. To make an impact with your data and analytics, you really need to connect the data with the user. The data with the user. And that's really about a drum beat. A drum beat underlies the band. It delivers power to the band, and they can build on top of that and deliver power to the entire audience and to the whole organization. You want your data and analytics to be like that, to be that foundation that delivers power to your decision makers, your caregivers, your stakeholders, and they in turn can drive the transformations that they need to do out in the community for your whole organization. So don't let your analytics efforts just be a drum solo, just be about something for you. Have it be for everybody else. Have your analytics efforts really drive the transformation of your entire organization and empower your entire community to have better health for your population. Thank you.